blowing.
All right, great.
Hey, Mike.
Welcome, everybody, to the Sarpy County and City's Wastewater Agency meeting. Today is Wednesday, March 26, 2025. It's 4 o'clock. Copy of Nebraska Open Meeting Act rules are on the north wall of the agency boardroom. And anybody from the public that's here that wants to talk is certainly welcome to address us on any topic. I just ask if you come forward that you state your name and address for the record. In attendance today, we have the City Administrator of Springfield, Kathleen Gotch, the Mayor of Gretna, Mike Evans, the Mayor of La Vista, Douglas Kendig, the Mayor of Bellevue, Rusty Hike, the Assistant City Administrator for Papillion, Mark Sturzma. I'm Don Kelly, Sarpy County Commissioner. We also have our Agency Administrator, Dan Hoynes, here, our Agency CFO, Mark Setout, our Agency Lawyer, Adam Charlson, and Lisa Hare will be our secretary today. So if you haven't already, and I haven't, please silence your cell phone, and let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get into the staff updates, administrators or mayor comments. Okay, I have one. I'm going to pass these out to the agency board members. One more here. We need one more. Yesterday, we received notification that we won an award. It's a pretty prestigious award, and it has to do with engineering excellence. And HDR, architectural firm, an engineering firm, requested our permission to submit us for the award, and we won. So Dan Hoynes and somebody else yet to be named, some future draft pick to be named later, will attend a gala event in Washington, D.C. on May 20th. And the biggest problem I see is it's black tie, and I'm not sure any of us own a black tie, but maybe some of you do. If you do, let me know, because you may be drafted to attend. But no, it's a great honor. Dan, were there some reasons specifically cited? Are they in this handout you gave me, or?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, member mayors. I did list a couple in an email in there, but the regional partnership was certainly important. The nature being the only one, there were several engineering reasons that it was identified. There was some tunneling, some micro tunneling from an engineering perspective that was unique to the project, and a handful of others, but really one of the primary things was the nature of the regional partnership and the ability to, I think there was a quote that stuck out. I'd never seen it, but 20 years in planning and 40 years into the future. I thought that was pretty, kind of encapsulates this project. 20 years in the making and 40 years into the future.
Well, great. Thanks, Dan. And since you're up there, let's roll right into your report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and member mayor. So start off tonight, there's a couple of calendar events that are coming up. There will be a formal vote by this board on the agency budget on April 23rd, our next meeting. This afternoon, the next agenda item, I'm going to do a recap of the 24 budget and talk about some policy questions moving forward that we need to address. Mark Setout will then follow me, and he'll talk about the 25-26 budget proposal, the one that you'll be voting on that's been sent out. It's have about a month, but this is just a discussion. Both agenda items, they're just discussion items. But that's coming up the 23rd. We have zeroed in on a date, sent out save the dates, June 9th, 2 p.m. For the commissioning #First Flush ceremony down at Springfield. We're continuing to work some of those details. We have gotten confirmations from Governor Pillen and Senator Holcroft to attend the event, so we'll continue to navigate and put that agenda together for that particular day. Hopefully you all have it on your calendars and we'll be able to attend that event. So really we'll be formalizing the, if you will, the soft commissioning that we did back in December. So we also, between now and the next time we meet, we'll be finalizing and going live with our new agency website. You did approve that, I think, in the last budget year. Lisa's worked really hard on that. Jeff and Mark have worked on it. A substantial improvement over our current one that's linked to 2 different ones. It's got a lot more transparency. It's got audits. It's got financial information. It's got master plans, really at a link. But before we go live, I'll certainly give that copy out to your administrators, and I'm certain they will forward that to you. The chairman mentioned the award, and so I'd like to reserve the rest of my time. I have a specific agenda topics and presentation on the budget, but that's kind of the short version moving forward the next 30 days, Mr. Chair.
Okay, great. Any questions for Dan? Thank you, Dan. Okay, financial dashboard. Mark set out. Agency treasurer, CFO.
Oh, you're going right back up.
All right. Good afternoon, board members. I'm Mark Setout, the agency treasurer. I will be brief with the dashboard unless the board has questions, as I'll be back up shortly to present the 25-26 budget, as Dan noted. There's no change for connection fees on the revenue side here. We did receive our first flow revenue from Sarpy County, $16,900. Federal earmark grants, there's no change there. We did record flow meter reimbursement from Sarpy County, $146,000, and miscellaneous income of $10,000. That was for some maintenance and blowout of the lines servicing Oak Leaf subdivision. Interest income slightly ticked up. That's everything on the revenue side. Expenses are at 46% of the budget, as we're about 67% through the fiscal year. Loan balances, the only change there is to the WIFIA loan. That went up to 17 million from 16 and some change from last month. No movement on pilot funds. And the biggest change on the dashboard is the cash position. That went down about 1.5 million, and that is primarily due to the payment for the Omaha connection fees that we discussed at the January meeting. That was about 1.24 million. So that is all that I have regarding the financial dashboard. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Mark? Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, brings us to the consent agenda. There's 2 items on the consent agenda. Is there any item, either of those 2 items anyone wants to see moved to the regular agenda? Make the motion. If not, I'll take a motion to approve as published.
Motion, Bellevue.
Second.
Motion by Bellevue, second by Gretna. Any further discussion? Please vote.
Yea, 6, nays none, motion carried.
Okay, 2 items on the regular agenda tonight. The first one is item number 5. It's a discussion of proposed FY 25-26 budget. Dan Hoynes, Agency Administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, member mayors. Again, this is agended as a discussion item only under the budget for next year. We have a separate agenda item, discussion about the Gretna request put on by the city of Gretna. For some historical background, I want to talk a little bit today about a recap of our current budget. So, let me get to my... Almost a year ago, not quite a year ago, we finalized the reviewed, accepted, and adopted new connection fees and user rates based on a study completed by Corello Engineering. As part of that resolution, we were there's a clause that we review those fees next year by the end of fiscal 26. We have certainly kept our finger on the pulse of those as we've really finalizing the first level of construction capital and moving forward. But Corello really is important to this discussion. There were three primary objectives in that study last year. Recommended best practices for financial performance to test the feasibility of the rates to achieve certainty for short and long-term financial needs, and to develop a rate model that can adapt to the operational uncertainties of a new agency or a greenfield project. So I went through last week or so and said, okay, what do we know for certain? And what are still some of the uncertainties and questions we need to answer? And there are certainties here. So we commissioned it into operations certainty. Our proposed costs for next year are actually less than we put in. Now, we didn't spend much this year because we didn't go into operation, frankly, in fairness. But what we thought a year ago would take us to operate this for a full year is actually a couple $100,000 less. Part of that is what we'd projected maybe to use Omaha in some of the rate modeling, but we ended up going with Hawkins and got some better prices on that. So that's a little bit better. We have the appropriate staff in place to manage the project into the foreseeable future. I'm confident with amendment to the WIFIA loan, we'll make significant progress this year on the DPE of both the blue and the green lines in the master plan, and that is a 12 to 18-month process. Still under the certainties, back to the Corello, the rate model study, the revenue requirements to avoid the use of any funds from the county reserve fund or a call on the county backstop. These are 5-year revenue projections that we need. So going into next year, I can't find the point here, 907,149 in pilot funds. This year we got 700 and change, but that's been increasing pretty significantly, but it's got to go up a couple 100,000. The sewer rate revenues, of which we've just invoiced our first rate revenues, folks, just invoiced it. We'll make our connection with Springfield, I believe, Monday, Kathleen, as of today. Thank you for that. It's been a while, but so we're really kind of late in the game in getting these revenues in, but we'll get a full year next year. But we're projecting $790,000 in rate revenue next year over the next 5 years, going up to $1.688 million. This rate model said that's what you need, again, to avoid the use of a county reserve fund or a call on the taxes. Now I'm going to go to the last one, the connection fees. We're we know what we came up with this year. I think it was 900,000 was our projection. Next year is 920 in connection fees. And this year we're 3.3 million, I think. Pretty significant increase, which is creating that over $2 million will flow to the agency surplus fund at the end of this fiscal year. I put that under certainty. There's no authorization to spend it. We don't have budget appropriation. We're not recommending it, but over $2 million will go there. The use of that surplus fund by the agency must be agreed upon by Sarpy County. It's specifically agreed upon by Sarpy County. Yeah, my mouse keeps going. There we go. Operational uncertainties. Again, go back to Corello. There are certain things and there are uncertain things. Here are the uncertainties. The revenue we generate from future connection fees and user rates. Keep in mind, we have three sources of revenue to pay all of our bills. We don't have occupation tax, we don't have sales tax, we don't have property tax. There's three revenue sources that we use. We've got the connection fees that are the biggest at this point, but at some point that changes, that shifts as you build your system up. We've got user rates, which we're going to start getting on, and we've got pilot funds. That's how we're paying our bills here. And so I really wanted to take some time and say, as we talk about other things here today, that we have to meet those. The other operational uncertainty is aligning construction of future trunk lines with the demand. The demand is great. We've known it. We don't have the solutions. And that's really the challenge to this board as a collective group to figure out moving forward. Of the many things we've gotten right on here, as we work through the staff, if we sat down today, would we build those lines in the same place, knowing what we're knowing? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe some differences in that. But the problem or the challenge for us today is to figure out how to get Phase 1B, Phase 2, and even future trunk lines constructed because we're just not in a position to borrow any more money. It's going to have to be done in a different manner. Again, here are the operational uncertainties. You've all seen this map. You got $131 million to build the complete line out to Gretna. You've got 17 or 19.8 million to get the line to Springfield. You got 17.1. These are construction costs to get the line to Papillion. Again, blue or green, not funded. But again, hopefully will be design permitted with easements next year. So with all of that, I think here are the policy questions before this board to be considered. Are we going to allow members to advance construction of agency lines with a commitment to reimburse that cost? Really important question. 2, if advancement of an agency line requires temporary service by Omaha until the agency can serve that area, should agency rates be charged? I'm going to pause there again for some more historical. We all, many of us that look around here, know the history of Omaha accepting our sewer and deferments and such. Omaha, in my tenure here, since I've been involved in the sewer project or the county or this, has been willing to accept sewer south of the ridgeline, our jurisdictions. Every single conversation is predicated on a temporary basis. They would only do it on a temporary basis. Some of you have agreements with them. Some of you are updating those agreements that come in. They do not want to make any commitments to take that map from south of the ridgeline permanently up there. So everything we do has to be designed and agreed upon that when the agency infrastructure gets there, that flow comes to us coming in. That creates two classes of users from our membership. You have users who may need to pump north for a long time, and you have users that could build a blue line, but are going to pump right down that have the ability to go into our Phase 1A infrastructure. So north, south. You've got two classes of users in here. So that's a policy issue that I'm sure we're going to talk about today. And if the agency rates are charged for temporary Omaha service, who keeps those rates? I think those are three really important questions that we need to address, not just because of the budget coming forward, but because of the specific request made by Gretna. And I'm not either going to pick on them or support them. I think Bellevue could be in the same position over on the other side of the county. We have really approached this as a staff. There's been a lot of debate and a lot of discussion. Is we need to give options that are good for the majority of this board, for the majority of these members. I always like a unanimous vote. I'm not sure we get there on this, but I think that we've got good, fair-minded people, and I think it's time to have those discussions. And frankly, Gretna has asked, I think appropriately, for a decision, and they'll be talking about it. If I can put a plug on the Gretna issue for this moment, I'll come back up, but I would like to turn it over to Mark here to finish the moving forward, and then I'll come back up and answer any questions that Mayor Evans may have. Are you okay with that, Mr. Show?
Yeah, sounds good.
Mark, if you come up, talk about the budget next year.
right, so this is the fiscal year 25-26 budget, and it reflects the agency's shift away from the primary construction phase and into more of an operational phase. I'm going to run through a few slides highlighting some of those items that are most affected by this change. Let me go. Okay, so we see income reduced significantly because we're no longer borrowing as much money for construction. We see expenses reduced by a modest amount as we still have design, permitting, and easement costs, as Dan noted, as well as operations and maintenance costs for the year. This slide shows the data in chart form. The green column is the 25-26 budget numbers, followed by the previous year's numbers, and then the change in dollars and the change in percent. We project that the revenue from connection fees and flow rates will cover our debt service obligations for the year. We will need to use cash on hand to cover other operational expenses. As the agency is better staffed and we transition out of the main construction phase, we will be able to reduce our need for outside consultants and significantly reduce our capital project costs. This chart shows the small surplus from connection fee and rate revenue after debt service obligation is met, as well as the change year over year for outside consultants and the project costs. The O&M budget will be reduced by 19%, while O&M equipment increases by 86% as we look to purchase a Bobcat and a UTV. Dollar-wise, this is still about $100,000 and a net reduction for these two line items. And this chart illustrates the overall dollar amount reduction for these two related line items. Personnel and benefit costs will increase by almost 12%. Health insurance costs will increase by 32% based on the numbers provided by the county health plan. This chart shows the change from last year. We actually are slightly under budgeted for health insurance in 24-25, and that is contributing somewhat to the delta increase for this year. So the full budget with year-over-year comparisons and line item detail is available for your review. These are the budget items that we wanted to highlight for you today. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the budget.
Questions? I think that's good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Again, just as a reminder, that will be for your formal vote at the next agency meeting. And then between April 23rd and June 30th, our formation interlocal requires it be ratified by each of the 6 members governing bodies by June 30th, so a couple of months after that. So I'm just here, Mr. Chair, to answer any questions that may come up in terms of Mayor Evans' request, or questions from any other board member, frankly. Oops.
Fire away.
He's boss.
Yeah, we'll just move on then to item 6, which is a discussion from the city of Gretna on an 1,100-acre boundary adjustment request. Mayor Mike Evans.
Great, thanks so much. Appreciate all the work you've done, Dan, and the budget looks good. It's great seeing completion and those revenues coming in. It's kind of like you're starting to operate a business now instead of just dreaming and digging. So it's pretty exciting. Little did I know, I don't know, when I ran for mayor, I had no idea I needed to have a master's degree in sewer. But I tell you what, I think I have one now after all this, and it's exciting. So I think it's about 3 years ago we kind of started the conversation because, you know, Paula came in, I was kind of getting my feet under me, and we really identified that this community was going to change. And it wasn't anything we were trying to do. It was just a matter of fact, Omaha's boundary was running right up against ours, and everything was spilling into our community, and we needed to, one, understand the growth, manage it, and then seize these opportunities. And it really blends in well with kind of where the agency's budget is. Now, once again, this isn't a new request, and we just felt like after 2 or 3 years, now we're turning away business. We're turning away revenue that the agency could be capturing. So I'll just walk through a little bit of the why. So we really feel like this agency is built on economic development. And we really feel we can grow Sarpy County, and a lot of this won't even be in our community, it'll be in Sarpy County. So we can add, you guys passed something, I think it's January of 23 now, December 23.
Didn't make it.
And it was, I forget, it was maybe 100 acres or 200 acres. And with that, we were able to provide $1.8 million of connection fees. So when you talk about that, we had $2 million of budget revenue. We provided $1.8 million just in that one ask of connection fees. And additionally, we've added hundreds of jobs, and I think it's $125 million valuation to the county. And those are all coming, their jobs coming, it's real stuff. So that was just on a small parcel. And the reason we ask this is because we understand the agency needs to take care of itself and be financially stable and not stretch itself, to be honest. And once the revenue starts coming, that's great. And when they connect, that's even better. In the meantime, we can serve this part of the county. And we think there's a good combination of how we can help ourselves be financially stable and do this without the support of the agency. And when they connect, we'll have built out that line form, and the users will be there. So the essence is, we're asking for this 1,000 acres, and you can see it on the map. There's 2 parcels generally. With that, we think for sure we would definitely pay the connection fees, and I think that's a good standard. And if you think of it, like the hardest part of a new restaurant is when they put all the money and they invest in the money, then they open up, and now you got to pay the bills and the customers and the employees you hire. Well, this, to me, it's almost a pretty good example of, if you allow Gretna to kind of serve this area, we'd collect all the connection fees, and then the thought is, well, let's give 75% of that right back to the agency without any cost. So you collect 75% of the connection fees, and the other 25% goes into escrow for the future line. So Gretna doesn't use those. We just give half or 75% to the agency, and the other part goes in kind of a nest or the fund for the future line. So when it is time to connect, there'll be a fund there, a seed money to get started. There's been talk about the user fees. I think those are all good discussions. I think we got to kind of find out the best way for everybody to do that. Gretna's fortunate to have a little bit of a lower user fee, and if the agency's fees charged, while I'm not a big fan always of artificially increasing government expense to the public, I think we can justify it as saying, hey, let's use that money as possibly the replacement to help us build that. And so that may be a way to replace and support us in doing this without harming the agency. And then when the agency connects, they get the full fee, and the base is already built out without doing any work. Let's see. I think that's the basis of it. I think we had a requirement about connecting in 2035. I think the whole intent is we just really want to make sure it happens, that we build this out, and we're making a good faith effort of spending millions of dollars or a lot of our city's money to build this infrastructure. And we want to make sure that the agency does have intentions to connect, instead of, okay, guys, we did all this work, where are you at? And so there's some type of a commitment there, but really that's the essence of it. I don't want it. The intent wasn't to make a decision. I just wanted to bring it up. We feel pretty passionate about it. We think it's an opportunity for the agency and for the county, because quite honestly, once again, the city, none of this is going to be in the city of Gretna for years. We're going to increase county valuation. We think we can provide almost operating capital for the agency while it builds out its base. And when it gets its base built out, they'll have, and remember that chart, Dan, you did, the line was, okay, here's where our revenue shortfall is going to be. And it's like the first 5 or 7 years.
2031.
Yeah, so I remember that, and it's like, and this is almost a perfect example where you can almost get operating loan free of charge. While we build it out, we provide the capital and hold this other 25% for future line. It just seems like it complements where the agency's at. I know there's a lot of details that you have to work out, but I think the concept's worth working on and fine tuning, because it really helps the whole agency. And our interest is the agency successful too. And I know when you just build the restaurant, you hope it works and you're always worried about every dollar. But I think this helps solve two concerns. And the summary is on the paper. You guys have probably already seen that. Kathleen and Mark, I'm sure you've a little bit of aware with it. But we've seen it coming, and we've already turned away significant opportunities. And we were at the Gross ARPA today, and they're talking about these site-ready lack of sites in the metropolitan area, because there's just nothing site-ready, and there's tons of, all the onshoring with what could happen in the potential future with some of the federal policy. There's a great opportunity for the metropolitan area to seize these. And if we don't have sites ready and we can't sewer them, they're just going to look past us. So I think this is the moment we can work together and really find a good solution for the county and the agency and our community. That's it. Any questions? And for sure, this is a discussion within the administrators, but I just wanted to bring it up and make sure, we think it's a good idea. We're willing to work with everybody to find a solution.
Question for Dan, I guess. How does this fit into the financial model that we have?
Fair question. So what I have up here, Mayor, is the formal Gretna request, and I think the forum policies they've asked us to address. What I've been doing here the last few weeks is did have a meeting with Gretna to better understand. I think Paula was going back to her council to have a discussion. To answer that, it's unknown. It's in the uncertainty. And I hate that, but what we know is our connection fees this year have been significantly more coming in. I think it really becomes this policy question of, do we want to allow them to advance? And so I think we can do enough analysis to get what the 25% is. Preliminary analysis is we can probably do that, but is that what the majority wants to do? Because it's really a policy question. The math's probably going to work, but it's going to take from something else, theoretically. That's a decision for that side of the table.
Some of these numbers are, I don't want to say they're arbitrary, but some of those numbers, whether it's 20, 25, or 30, I don't know. The whole intent is just because some of the criticism in our community and the development community in our areas, they're taking the revenue out of our area and building infrastructure in another part of the county. And so where our risk is, we've taken the revenue out of our area, we hope the rest of the county works. And so we're a little bit beholden, and that's the essence, is try to create some seed money so there is a reason to finish the line.
So we do have 2 approved agreements. So I'm going to call up, I had a map up here, I think a bit prematurely. I'm going to call it back up here. Mayor Evans referenced, I think I refer to it as McKean Kirsten's property that paid the $1.8 million a year or so ago. And we actually did approve a second agreement 6 months ago, I think, Opus. Although I don't think that development is going. So their 1,100 acres is represented by purple, mayors and administrators, by purple. So I had Jeff do this map. And what I asked Jeff to do, because there's this term competitive advantage, and I think that's real, I think that's a legitimate concern. And so I asked Jeff, I said, well, if the board were to effectively allow Gretna to sewer this and send it to Omaha, until we get our green line there. What would the citizens pay, the rate users in there? And you can see, based on current information, it's substantially less for Gretna. It's substantially less because in this case, Papillion and Springfield, we didn't do Bellevue. We weren't quite sure about how to analyze. Jeff was trying to get some stuff from Epiphany, and she got it, and he went on vacation. But Bellevue's going to have a big number, too. Probably similar to a Papillion number, would be my guess. And so from a staff position, we would have to be pretty passionate about you have to charge the agency rate, even if they're going north. Now, what you do with it after you charge it, and I think from meeting with Gretna, they're not opposed to that. I think they want more discussion on, hey, I'm not using this sewer. Why do I have to? I should use it because I'm getting these expenses. I don't want to represent you, Mayor. If I misrepresent, please let me know.
No, that's fine. And, we have some certain open to that, because if we just take the $31 and we're able to charge, say, the agency fee, well, that'll help offset our cost and help reimburse us for building the line. And so it helps, instead of the agency having to come write a check, maybe and I haven't done the math, but that's just money to help us and our community build a line. Until the agency gets there, then the agency gets all of it.
And again, just to try and look at both sides of the coin here, the other logic here is that all 6 members, including Gretna, signed off on it's really $120 million mortgage to help pay for this yellow line. And so do you displace? I think there's a question, a fair one. If development goes here instead of here, you've taken revenue away from this yellow line to pay your debt service that come in. You'll never be able to quantify it. It's kind of like crime or parking in my life. You don't know. But we all made an agreement to use the money that's in this purple to help pay for the yellow. That's a change that comes in now. If you take this 1,100 acres at our current rate, you have the potential, again, at full build out. And again, when I talk about the cost of sewer, we took the highest possible, $129. That's the highest. That's your time and a half in Springfield and their sewer rate and their rate. Everything's the highest, just worst case scenario. So you're going to have different, talk about a PhD in sewer analysis, Mayor, trying to figure these rates out. So my direction is just take the highest when you come in. But this purple area at build out, the 1,100 acres, if you round up, it's $30 million. Now, we only use a factor development of 60%, but you're still talking potentially $19 million that could come sooner than later, certainly, if that's the decision of this board. But I really don't want to talk this much, so I'm going to listen.
That'd be fine. I'd like to hear from the other members, because the direction needs to come, to be honest, from the elected officials. We're the ones that sit on this board. I know we've got a couple of representatives here today. I respect that. I hope what I say doesn't make anybody here happy today, because I think it involves some compromise from maybe both sides. So when LaVista decided to get involved in this agency, because we aren't affected by whatever this agency does. It may bring some more people to our hotels. It's not going to bring sewer to my city. I'm going to get that runoff effect of the development that you four are going to have. Sorry, 5. When the agency started, the one thing we didn't want to do, and the reason it was created, I guess, is to help further economic development in Sarpy County. So as we started to put things together, and we laid out our phasing project probably back in 2018 or somewhere in that area, the majority of the growth in Sarpy County at that time was, to be honest, probably in the Papillion and Bellevue area. Gretna probably hadn't quite caught fire yet. So when Dan says, would we have set that map differently? Maybe. But you know what? We made a vote on that map that this is how it would be developed. But I don't know any strategic plan that is written in ink. I think all of our cities have had to change long-term vision because of the change of the economic growth or whatever else is happening. So I applaud Gretna's growth, and if they are willing to put up the money to build an infrastructure that someday this agency is going to take over, and they are willing to give 100% of the connection fees back to the agency, if we don't allow this project, it goes from 100% to zero. Just like the 1.8 million when we allowed them to do the 100+ acres. I'll disagree with point 2. The 25% of the connection fees paid to the agency to put into a holding account for easement acquisition, construction of the line, the DEI. Per the WITHIA loan, we're already going to do the design and engineering. Now, we don't have that finalized yet, and I know we've got to get this county to sign off on that and us, but I feel positive. So I think that can take away the design and the engineering. As of today, we are committed to that phasing in project, which is 1B next. And we are committed to paying our loans off so that the county doesn't have to backstop it. We never had any intentions of the county backstopping this, but because of the WITHIA loan, they were forced into that. I think I've had discussion with the county. I don't think they will have to do that. But part of that is that we have to collect the fees for that. So I appreciate Gretna offering 100% of the connection fees. I think it'll give us a surplus and get us through those rough years. I disagree that we should put 25% away specifically for that project because we have already committed to a phasing in project, which includes 1B. Moving on to item number 3. Agency agrees to reimburse Gretna. I think you could substitute that with Papillion, Bellevue, Springfield at a prorated schedule for all trunking sewers constructed by Gretna or developers that are identified as agency infrastructure. You know what? When this agency becomes whole and we get through that rough spot, and Mark can come up here and talk about our surplus. I don't think the agency was ever created to be a for-profit operation. So at that time, when we know that our loans are paid, when we know that we can cover our maintenance costs, when we know that we can cover our staffing costs, any new equipment, anything else, if there is a pot of money, then I think any city sitting up here should be allowed to be reimbursed. Now, I don't know what that plan is. You know what makes a great politician? A really smart staff. And I would throw that back at staff to figure out. I cannot agree with the 4th bullet point, that within 60 days, if we're not there in 2035, I don't think WITHIA would allow that. They're not going to let us pledge future dollars. Only 9 years away, 10 years away. I think they would have a heartburn with that. In turn, I think the county would have a heartburn with that. So I can't agree with that. I fully support a reimbursement plan. I just don't think we can put a date on it today because we don't know what the plan is. And we don't know what are the uncertainties that Dan listed, the connection fees and the user fees. One thing that I've heard is the competitive advantage. What Gretna has proposed isn't the same. They're not charging the full sewer rate, which, to be honest, to a new developer, I would see as a competitive advantage. My suggestion would be that on the user fee, that Gretna would have to charge the same as Papillion or Springfield. Now, your local rate is in your control. But as far as the sewer rate, it should be the full amount. And then what I would suggest with that, because I believe you're in the $40 range right now,
We're in the 31.
but the sewer
And they
agency rate,
Is 64?
so are you already charging the 64 for the user
No.
rate?
Because we're not using it.
You're
We're
not
just,
using
we're just doing
it.
our
Okay.
community stuff.
Okay.
Yep.
So that brings to the next point. They will not be hooking up to the agency pipe. They will be paying Omaha to take their sewage. I almost said the other thing, but I caught myself. In my mind, if they are willing to build agency pipe within the very short future, not only is the agency going to save money 10 to 15 years down the road when we can get there, just in additional construction costs, they're going to be giving us money back in connection fees. I think they should be able to keep 75% of the user fee to help pay for their construction and their bonds until we can finally get out there. They're not hooked into our pipe. We have no maintenance. We have no operation. They'll maintain it. They'll build it. To me, it seems all positive. With the 25%, I'd like to see maybe 25% of that user fee come back to the agency to help us become maybe more fiscally stable so that we can pay off our current debt. Those are suggestions that I would at least like Dan and your staff to have, and then bring the administrators into it to see if we can do something there. If anything that I've said today, and I probably have talked too much, but I get to play Switzerland in this. And maybe I can see it from the Papillion side. I think at Bellevue, I can see where it could be an unfair competitive advantage if you didn't do that. I also got the heart of the agency first, as far as making sure that we never have to go to Sarpy County for a backstop. I think the 25% of the user fees would do that. I think they deserve the other 75% for the money that they're going to spend. And the day that they hook in to agency pipe, all of their user fees and connection fees come to the agency. I will be quiet now.
No, I think you summarized it really good. From the county perspective, there's two things I know for sure. Growth is going to happen, and there's nothing we can do to stop it. So, and that's a good thing. So I want to see Gretna develop, and I want to see them grow, and I want to find the way to make that happen. But I think you summarized that compromise is going to be needed on all sides. I tend to look at things a little bit differently not because I'm wired differently, but because where you stand depends on where you sit. And in the county, as this agency infrastructure is developed and grows, the county shrinks because the cities are going to grow. And so my point from day one has always been what's best for the whole of Sarpy County, not what's best for Gretna, or certainly not what's best for La Vista or Bellevue or Papillion either, or Springfield. What's best for everybody? And I don't know, the old saying, it's hackneyed, but, rising water floats all boats. Sure does. And, but there's just a competitive nature among some of the agency members, and I get that because your primary responsibility is to your city and the people that elected you. But I see a path forward here, and I think Doug's laid it out pretty good. I would just say at the end of the day, the county really doesn't gain a lot. I mean, sure, we're going to gain some property tax revenue for sure as the cities grow. But I truly believe we all win if we work together, and if we don't work together, we're all going to lose. And that wouldn't be a good thing. The county is really, and I'm not patting ourselves on the back here, but we wouldn't even be having these discussions if it wasn't for Sarpy County, because we're the ones that put the money down. And what were we thinking when we did that? We were thinking it's the best thing for Sarpy County. It's the best thing for 5 cities. So we backstopped not one loan, but 2 loans, And so for me personally, it's almost like, having a family of 5 children and the kids are squabbling about which one gets to sit by the window, in the car ride across the country. We'll figure it out as we go, and it could change, state by state. But I think if we all work together, I think it's going to be in our best interest. So let's just find a way, and let's try to think maybe at the larger picture instead of maybe what's best for me, but what's best for everybody. And I think if we take that approach, we're going to find success. And there's no doubt. I mean, Gretna is on the precipice of major growth. But as Bellevue unwinds they just had a groundbreaking on one of the, 4th largest indoor water parks in the nation. That could be a springboard for them. Who knows? I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but that could be a springboard that blows up the eastern end of the county with development. So, we'll be like in a side of vice grip, and we're coming from the east and the west, and then the center's going to fill in, and Papillion's going to go south down to the river, and Springfield's going to grow, in a circumference out as far as they probably want to grow. And they may get to the point where they say, I think we're just about right here. We don't want to grow anymore. So I just think you've laid out a good blueprint. And now all we need to do is figure out the methodology to get us there. But I think the vision that you're talking about, Doug, is the right one. I really think that's gonna really help us in the long run. Love to see that pipe grow faster. And who knows? I mean, we're leveraged pretty significantly right now, but who knows? Maybe the state or others may see the light like we've seen and come and give us additional assistance under the theory that rising water floats all boats. When we do a economic impact analysis and we are able to show that we're bringing billions of dollars back to the state, it seems to me one of these days down Lincoln, the light's going to go off. But I see it at a macro level down there when we go down to testify. There's 93 counties, and everybody wants everything at once. But if you just think, there's no other economic development project in this entire state that has this kind of impact. So I think it's not only our responsibility, but it's our duty to find a solution and make sure, that we help. Today it's Gretna. Tomorrow it'll be Springfield and Bellevue and Papillion, maybe all at once, maybe simultaneously. But we've got to do that because that's what good governance is. So that's my thoughts.
Is there a chance they can take this award back
What was that?
if we don't get along? I agree with everything that's been said up here, all 3 of you. we do have to think of Sarpy County first. It's, we're going to grow. It's up to each individual city to mess it up if they're going to, if it messes up, it's going to be our individual faults because we have a great partnership with this board. We did the right thing. When I sat here 6 years ago, it was just getting started. This has changed. The sewer was going to be going to Springfield. Bellevue had a smaller footprint, I think, back then. It's kind of reversed. It's been a lot of going back and forth and figuring this out, and I think we're close as to what's going on now. So I don't want to stop anybody from developing more. It's going to help us all. Don said that perfectly. With high tide rises all boats. So the clawback's kind of a nerve-wracking thing going on right now, but so I think there's probably some adjustment on that. Doug already said that as well. Yeah, I mean, we'll work it out. We'll figure it out. So I think everything that was set up here, I don't think there's any need to add to it. I think we're all on the right track. So.
Well, we just appreciate the chance. I mean, I think it does show the uniqueness of Sarpy County to be able to have these open and frank conversations and respect all that. So, it's not hard for us to bring this up because we trust you guys, we listen, and we know we collaborate. We know this opportunity for everybody, and if we have success or Bellevue has success, it's success. We don't report agency numbers within the cities. We say the agencies, here's what they're doing because of this. And so this is the opportunity. I think we're going to show a lot of success. I really do. But I respect everybody's opinion. We're going to work with you guys. It's not about Gretna, but we just feel there's an opportunity we can all take advantage of now. And the time is now. So.
Can we just at least get a consensus from the agency board up here that what was said is probably the right approach moving forward here so that we can get off the schneid, so to speak? Because Gretna's been really patient with us. But, I mean, opportunities are coming in the door every week by week. And so we need to move out. I mean, it's time to move out. And so if I can just get some sort of consensus from the agency up here, I think Mayor Hike's already given it to me, given me his. But, I mean, what do Springfield and Papillion think?
Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Chairman. Obviously, I'm not Mayor Black, but I'll do my best to channel his wisdom. And I think this is a discussion, maybe not of yes or no, but of how. That's how we look at it. Obviously, the agency has an obligation to take care of each of the members, but doing so while maintaining the integrity and financial security of the overall agency. So we have to look at it through that lens. And, I think with this request, we need to take the time to do it right. We do have some concerns. I think we're pretty much consistent with what's already been said. Getting to the how, I think that the letter that we reviewed, it's missing the formal application. It references a previous application that really isn't valid anymore because there's been changes since that application was made. So I think we need a formal application. I think it needs to go through the normal process of review by agency staff and consultants, and then administrators, and then come to the board for consideration. It's also, with an application like that, a fiscal impact study is required by our policies. So we would ask that be conducted prior to it being placed on the board agenda. I think there's been some discussion about the Bellevue sewer expansion interlocal being a model. We think that's maybe apples and oranges, not a perfect template for this situation. I think in that case, we expanded the jurisdiction, which expanded the revenue. This is a little different animal. Again, like I said, we're not saying yes or no, but I want to make sure that we look at this on its own merits. And then again, I think we agree with some of the comments that have already been made on some of the user fees and the reimbursements. We talked about the how, and instead of doing a boundary adjustment, focusing on the checking my notes here. The pioneering policy. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong bullet. I think if we were to focus on a pioneering policy that works for Gretna in this situation, that could then be modeled by all the other jurisdictions. We've also turned away development because it wasn't in the phase one. But we'd also agree that there's a lot of opportunity in Gretna, and we do want to accommodate that. So, that would be our suggestion. Let's focus on this agency putting together a policy on pioneering. And we have some thoughts on what that would include. It should honor the phasing plans that have already been approved by this board. It should determine the overall order of reimbursements. There are a number of reimbursements, and what order should those be handled. It should make clear that outfall and temporary infrastructure does not qualify for reimbursement, meaning, and I think this was already said, and I think it's in what was distributed today, reimbursement should only apply to infrastructure that will be owned and operated by the agency. And then we should define expectations for when connection is made and fees are collected once an agency's infrastructure is available. Not that we wouldn't assume that there'd be an immediate connection, but that should be addressed in the policy. And I would add, too, that we also support the use of WIFIA for the design of the line to Gretna, along with the easement acquisition. So I think that's all the talking points that I had with the mayor. Certainly once we get a formal application and the review by our technical experts, we reserve the right to provide more comment, but that's our thoughts today.
I would echo a lot of what's already been said up here. And I do agree that we have to have that formal application and look at the fiscal impact. Obviously, we want to see Gretna succeed. What's good for you guys then has a trickle effect to everybody else. And so we definitely see that. I think what I've always said, and I think I've been true in saying this all along, is we just want to make sure that whatever happens does not then negatively impact the agency and the fiscal ability of the agency, nor negatively impact another member in some way. And so I think compromise, like Mayor Kindig, like you said in the beginning, you don't think anybody is going to like what you have to say. Compromise sometimes is just that, is both sides walking away and feeling a little sting, but also meet in the middle. So I think staff does need time to digest this. We should probably, make this a priority moving forward and how we get there. So that way, when, if this comes up for someone else, as far as the pioneering goes, that it can be equal for any of the members. But again, the fiscal impact to the agency is what I think we need to look at and make sure that we're going to not impact the agency in a negative way. So, but we want everybody to succeed. We want to see everybody have growth and opportunities, and we understand Gretna's in a unique position. So that's what I have today. Need to do further review of the formal application.
So at the end of the day, it really is a policy question. And because I think the intent, at least what I'm hearing, is the intent, the consensus is there that we need to find a way to make this happen. And I mean, that's really the guidance that's being provided back to the agency administrator. Find a way to make this happen so we can move out.
Thank you, Mr. Sheriff. My notes, if I was tracking appropriately, the direction is for agency staff to work with Gretna staff to discuss a response to their request that in terms of reimbursement does not include a 25% holdback, but rather an analysis and recommendations on a longer-term reimbursement. That's what I took from at least comments from Mayor Kindig. And some of you echoed that. The other was for the agency staff to work with this Gretna staff to craft if it is a temporary service, then it's a 75% retention by the member that's providing the O&M. They would retain that. Am I tracking this correctly? Anybody disagree with that? Those two? Because, and Mr. Sturzman, always appreciate his insight. He's right. The how is always where it happens. But I need the what. Are you going to allow, and I think this board needs to vote on the what. Are you going to allow reimbursements of any kind? And are you going to allow a retention of those rates for temporary service? In my mind, this board should vote on that. And when you do that, then we can implement and do the how, the technical reviews of the specific requests. But we have a vote from this board that says we want a reimbursement policy and we're okay with them keeping those rates, because that's a change. And
You
again,
don't need that vote before that policy is created. We can vote when you have a policy.
right. But I mean, you talk about the how, you're talking months more of work here. And I don't think that's what I'm seeing. But I'm telling you, what I need is a vote from this board that says reimburse, and they can keep 75%, regardless of who it is. And then we address the specifics of the agreements.
Is that in essence like Mark was talking about the pioneering,
Yeah.
concept? I mean, to me, that's really what you're talking about.
I'm talking about the what, Mark's talking about the execution. Go ahead, Mark.
So again, this is based on conversations with Mayor Black, and I think we would have a hard time supporting use of any agency funding for temporary infrastructure. That's where we are today. Happy to keep talking.
I missed it.
So temporary connection. So the cost of a connection to the city of Omaha that's used today but will be abandoned in the future because there'll be connection to the agency. We shouldn't be using agency funding for that temporary infrastructure. That's where we land today. When we talk about
What
pioneering,
agency funding?
taking revenue, and
No.
I'm here to learn as well, but taking revenue away from the agency for a temporary cost.
Where are you taking it away from the agency?
Mark, are you saying the 25% user fees that was recommended to be withheld?
Yeah, and I think we're more sensitive to user fees than connection fees.
So my argument would be, and it's okay to argue, it's okay to have a difference of opinion. If they aren't hooking into the agency pipe, and they can't figure out how they're gonna help build this, we're gonna get this much. If we give them some tools to help pay their bonds, which would be 75% of the user fees, the agency's not only gonna collect 25% of the user fee, and that's just a number, that's a negotiable number. We're also going to collect connection fees. So if they didn't bring this, or they don't think that they could do it, the agency's gonna get $0. I'd rather get connection fees than 25% of the user fees, because to be honest, you've got zero or you've got a pot out here. So just, that's how I see it. Doesn't mean that, I'm not trying to convince you, just that's how I see it. So could we take what was said, and Dan, you need to make sure you're clear on it, but at least use that as a starting point for negotiations. It doesn't mean we're voting on it today at all, but it's a starting point for negotiations. And since Gretna brought it, this is Gretna's request, then I think the agency administrator should try to get it as close as possible and see what they could compromise on, and then bring it back to the administrators, which then in turn, your guys are our voice at those admin meetings. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it. And maybe we've got to go back to the administrator, Gretna, and change it. So I don't care where we start negotiations, but I think we need to start and see where we're at.
In 4 years, 8 years, whatever it takes to hook it up, then that's an instant income coming into the agency. So,
Yes.
That we wouldn't have.
right, it'd be zero.
And that helps, that revenue will help retire the debt that we've already incurred. So, and if it's larger than we had anticipated based on sequencing, then that will allow us to increase our reserve and get through that, with the pig through the python in the 2031, that we've been focused on, that where the lines almost merge. That'll widen the gap, and then it'll be clear sailing after that. I agree. If we don't allow them to do this, this is how much we get. And that doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't help Gretna. So,
Dan, do you have any financial analysis as of right now as to what them keeping 25% of the rate would look like, or how that would impact the agency? Is there any financial analysis that's been done yet?
It's in progress. I made the request to Corella.
Okay.
But again, I'm going to be sure, because we're going to walk away from here and we all got to go to work tomorrow, right? It's the Mayor Kindig's proposal is don't keep 25%. The agency holds on to, if I understood correctly, the connection fees and figures out an alternate reimbursement for all agency members. That it doesn't go back specific. So my walkway here, Kathleen asked that is, and that's why the what's so important for me, because I can have Steve or Mark Panny chase down a 25% reimbursement, and that's not what the majority wants. And I'm not hearing it.
No, I meant the user fees, not the connection. I know
No, not the-
100%,
yeah, I'm sorry.
100% connection
No,
comes
that's,
back to
and
the
again,
agency.
I don't think we had him do that, but that's a spreadsheet tweak. I think we have a meeting scheduled next
Okay,
week
'cause
kind of based on
I
this.
think seeing that would help, because right now it's just an arbitrary number,
But,
25%.
When we sent our financial long-term plan, we sent it off of revenue that was going to be generated off of 1A and 1B. So we didn't include anything in 2A as part of our financial plan.
Actually, it was only 1A. Didn't even do
It's only
1B.
1A.
Yeah.
So anything that happens after that is
Beyond.
extra money. I'd like to start at just a starting point. I'm not asking anybody to agree. I wouldn't do that. But a starting point, and then I think if our staff can meet with Gretna's staff to at least see what they would agree with and that type of thing. I do agree, we should do a fiscal impact. Maybe Gretna's done one for the area. I mean, there's avenues out there. Yeah, we need a formal application, but let's see if we can get closer on their 4 requests, and then obviously go back to staff. And we want to hear all of your concerns then.
Yeah.
But we need to, this is sewer agency, right? We need to shit or get off the pot on this. That's what we need to do.
Yeah, because I can see the connection fees and the financial modeling, that the agency would need those because that's part of the territory that you expected revenue from. So of course, you expected that revenue, so that makes sense. The usage fees are those only came in place when you incurred that expense and to operate. So that almost is like house money once you build it, and that pays for the debt. We're almost prepaying that with connection fees. And until they connect, that's when you have that operational expense. So it's kind of a variable cost, not a hard cost.
See, we all understand this about projects. You get economy of scale, and you have to look at this as a whole. It's in our analysis, the construction of the agency lines in the purple, right, would require a 53% reimbursement rate to be made whole. based on today's construction. So you wouldn't get barely halfway there on 25. But when you start getting your value, the other people coming in, that number goes down because it's not as expensive construction and the timing. So I say that because, you know, we've looked at this just enough to understand that, and again, timing, because again, Mr. Sersman's not wrong. There's a law application, there's analysis, but what am I analyzing? Am I analyzing a 25% reimbursement or nothing? And so from my perspective, and I'll do my best to herd the cats, I think me presenting a policy to this board saying this is what I've heard and you giving a thumbs up or down, then we can get into the specifics of the analysis. But right now, me trying to fix Gretna's problem, better figure out what the majority of this board is going to approve and not approve first. Otherwise, your analysis could be faulty.
Yeah, I mean, we don't want to waste your time.
Yeah.
We don't want you skating.
So I'm saying, I think next month we can get a policy up, whatever that policy may be.
And we need to do our homework too, because there is a point where it doesn't make sense for us.
Right.
Because, I mean, what are the bonds? What is the cost? Would that revenue even touch it? It might not even make sense.
Right.
So we probably need to understand our costs as well.
So that was my suggestion, that you as the agency director needs to work with Gretna. I don't know, that 25%,
It's a number.
it's just
I hear you,
it's a
Mayor.
number that I threw out. So get it closer before you come and ask this board for a policy. When you finally come to this board for a policy, I hope you've got 99% of this worked out with Gretna and all the rest of the administrators, and we rubber stamp it.
Well, and I think the other community administrators need to be involved as well, because if we're doing a policy, then it affects everybody. So I think,
Yeah, it's
I
not,
think
thank
it
you,
needs
Kathleen. We're not
just-
trying to solve just for Gretna.
well, right, and I don't
We're
think
trying
it
to
should,
solve for the whole basin.
I don't think it should be just agency and Gretna. I think everybody needs to come to the table and figure that out, especially if it's going to be a global policy for everybody.
I just have a feeling, though, that number's going to be a moving target because today's Gretna, well, 3 years from now, all the dynamics and factors could change. So it could be a different number for Springfield. It could be a different percentage for Papillion or Bellevue. But the policy, should steer toward what's it going to take to get it done, not what the specific percent or number is. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. That's what I've been trying to articulate for 15 minutes.
Well, see, I summed it up for you.
There you go. But I think by now you know that I'm not going to present anything that hasn't been vetted appropriately. And I'm not going to change who I am in that regard. So, but it's again, expectations are important here. It's not go just make it work from the Gretna agreement. It's figure out a reimbursement policy and process and bring it back for a vote and then apply it. Then do the how, or not the what.
Well, yeah, and as the only guy that really wasn't upset by anything you said, I think we all just want to get it done and get moving.
I'm always a fan of that.
All right.
Okay, so that was a serious discussion. Everybody knows that I like to have a little bit of fun in life, right? And most of you probably know that I'm a really big baseball fan, so I jotted this down as we were having them serious discussions, very good discussions. And, the Field of Dreams, there was a saying that if you build it, he will come. And I just wrote down here, if they build it, they will pay. So. With that,
Did you have any alibis, Mike? Or
No, I
anybody
can't
else?
top that, no.
Okay.
No, that's good.
Anything
I
from
appreciate
my
you
right
guys.
here? All right. Well, that sounds good. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate that. And our next meeting is April 23rd, 2025, and all the agenda items have been addressed as published, and the Sarpy County and Cities Wastewater Agency Board is adjourned. Thanks for coming.